Dragon's Dogma 2 is here only 12 years after the launch of the original open world fantasy RPG title by Capcom, and I must say, after over 130 hours, it is everything that I had hoped for in a sequel and so much more. Up front, I honestly think that this is going to be my game of the year for this year, and it's so early in the year, even, and I also don't think it's going to be particularly close either. Starting off, I do just have to say that Dragon's Dogma 2 features one of the best handcrafted open worlds in RPGs that we have seen, or any game for that matter. To compare it to another title from 2 years ago, the sense of wonder I felt wandering around, seeing objects in the distance or places and try to go to, and getting lost in the adventure of just adventuring. I'm talking about Elden Ring, of course, and Dragon's Dogma 2 gave me that same sort of feeling when I was playing. Sure, I can just do this quest that I'm on and follow the main story through, but what's down this side path? What's down this trail? What's in this cave? What's over this mountain? What's up this river? What's across this bridge? That ruined stone tower over the valley? What's in it waiting for me, and how do I get there? While exploring all of these options, more options and opportunities arise constantly. Before Elden Ring, there were only 2 times that I felt this wonderment and sense of exploration in an open world game. The first, Dragon's Dogma in 2012, and of course 10 years before that in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Absolutely painstakingly, beautifully, and lovingly crafted open worlds with locations to discover, adventures to go on, and secrets to find. Feeling this sort of wonderment in a game is a sort of hind. I know not when I'll be able to experience this again in the future, as most open world games are just a procedurally generated slab for the most part, with a few points of interest painted on by hand. Repeating objectives thrown over the top and called good. Numerous times you will follow a main road or lightly treaded trail and come to this vantage point that gives you a beautiful and wonderful panoramic view of the valley below, just showing you the next vast area you have to explore, making sure that you can see the points of interest that you'll want to go to. The Ubisoft open world, which 99% of games adhere to these days, Dragon's Dogma 2 does not, and it is an absolute treat to experience because of it. Of course, there has to be things to do in the world, to explore in the world. Many paths and caves and ruins you discover have items of interest both located in them, usually guarded by a few small enemies or a large monster, or both. Caves will have ancient burial chambers located deep within them, and a lich guarding a treasure, or a blocked-off secret path filled with goblins and their stash of loot, or a large monster blocking the path, which turns out to be a shortcut you can utilize when traveling from point A to point B in the future. All of these outcomes provide usefulness immediately or further down the road. The enemies you encounter belong to a few categories, but also have quite a bit of variety amongst them. Take the goblins, for example. As you progress further through the game, they become more diverse and challenging, moving on from wielding not but a torch and a wooden shield and throwing rocks, to fully armored and blowing horns to summon a ward to help them and other packs to fight. Impoverished highway bandits soon become well-armored and better fighting machines, full of larger groups of enemies. The change-ups don't only happen with the small enemies either. Large creatures, such as the Cyclops for example, will begin wearing armor, protecting their weak points, and so on and so forth. The tree doesn't have a lot of boughs, but it has well-crafted branches providing variety and mixing them together when necessary to create new encounters as you move throughout the game and the world. You are, after all, playing through only 2 different countries, which does have limited wildlife and sentient creatures available, all being adapted differently as humans would have in different forests, on the plains, in the desert, or on a volcanic island. This can be a turnoff for some, sure, but it was never a glaring issue for me. One other major thing about the world is the day and night cycle and what that means and brings to the table. At night, you'll encounter all of the same enemies as during the day, however, you will also come across the undead in the form of skeletons and zombies, as well as ghosts and even sometimes lich that rise from the ground as large spellcasting monsters. If you prefer not to deal with the night unless absolutely necessary, you can pay a fee to stay at the night at an inn and sleep through through the night in a bed, or of course in a bed at the house that you have purchased in one of the cities. You can then always make camp at one of the numerous campsites scattered throughout the world as well. Though, you do want to be cautious and make sure to clear the enemies away from around the site, or your night could be interrupted rudely and your camping equipment potentially destroyed in the ensuing fight. Camping equipment is reusable until it is destroyed, if that ever is the case. Personally, I used the same camping kit for multiple nights until I realized I didn't have it anymore after I forgot to clear out the surrounding area. At these camps, you can also cook some meats of varying qualities for some buffs to your basic stats such as health, stamina recovery, etc. The important reason, though, to set up a campsite or sleep in a bed is to recover your health. As you adventure, you will lose health from an ill-judged jump across a gap or combat with enemies. Many things can cause you to lose health. There will always be some that you can recover, but eventually you and your party will be whittled down, and sleeping will be the only way to recover this health. I personally like the system. It helps drive home the idea that the stress and toll of adventuring and traveling on your party, and that little bit of rest and recreation, be it only a cooked steak and a campsite nap or a stay at an inn, will restore it. There will be health that you cannot recover. The health that you can recover will be kind of like a gray little bar on your overall health bar, and there will just be an empty slot where the health you can't recover is. Like I said, the only way to recover this is to sleep. Now, you can either just not take damage or sleep it away. Those are your two options here, but I do like the system. Finally, you will be doing a lot of walking and running across this world. Fast travel is very limited and designed to be this way. Ox carts exist, but have limited travel paths and times that they travel at. They leave towns at dawn and go to a set location. You can either sit through the entire ride, but at that point you might as well just run yourself as it would be faster, or you can follow the prompt and just doze off. Either way, the ox cart does have a chance to be attacked by small enemies or large enemies on its route. You'll then want to help the guards defend the ox cart, and if you're not careful, the ox cart can be destroyed and you'll end up hoofing it the rest of the way to your location. Many a time was I defending an ox cart from a cyclops or an ogre or a minotaur, only to topple the large beast and have it fall directly onto the ox cart, or goad the minotaur into charging me, dodging it, and watching it go through the ox cart, forcing me to defeat the beast and then run the rest of the way. It does require you to think about not just wildly attacking enemies, as your attacks can also damage the ox cart, be it with weapons or spells. I've even had a pawn summon meteors from the sky, which destroyed the ox cart. Not cool, Silver. Not cool. The last fast travel system utilizes port crystals and fairy stones. Port crystals are stationary objects. 2 are in the world at the start, the rest are either found or offered as rewards for quests, and these you place yourself. You get to place a custom teleport point for yourself throughout the world. In your first playthrough, you will acquire about 6 or 7 of these crystals. Only 10 can be placed at a time though. However, so the last few will be acquired in New Game Plus if you so desire to play it. To travel between these crystals, you'll need to acquire and use consumables known as fairy stones. These must be used outside with a clear view of the sky. These can be found in chests as rewards from quests, or bought for a hefty sum of 10,000 gold from merchants and restocked every few days of in-game time. Now, when exploring, questing, and fighting, you'll of course have a class to play as. In Dragon's Dogma 2, much like in the first title, these are called vocations. Your character can switch between vocations at will, within a settlement, or at the vocation guild in large cities. If you have it unlocked, of course, you'll start off with 4 basic vocations: the Fighter, Thief, Archer, and Mage. Warrior and Sorcerer will be the first that you do unlock when you get to your first major city, following a short quest. Then as you progress through the game, you'll come across opportunities to unlock a few more, those being the Mystic Spearhand, the Magic Archer, and the Trickster and Warfare. Each vocation uses weapons designed for only those vocations, while armor can sometimes be shared or be unique to them, with the exception being the Warfare, who has no limit on vocation restrictions of weapons and armor that they can equip. They can mix and match as they please, which in theory is a really cool system, but I do kind of have a gripe with it at the same time. Each vocation is unique, with the Mage and Sorcerer being the closest but different enough that they weren't trying and is actually designed around this. As you level up each vocation, you unlock augments, which can then be used on any vocation that you have equipped, allowing the player to equip augments from any vocation onto the one they are currently playing as. The Warfare also gains the ability to use the core skills if they have those classes weapons equipped as well, such as charge attacks with the Warrior's two-handed weapons, jumping off walls with the Thief Stackers, levitating with the Mage's or Sorcerer's wand or staff, and so on and so forth. I ended up settling on mostly the Warrior and then the Warfare, mixing the Warrior with the Magic Archer as the Warfare. Like I said, I do like the idea of the Warfare, though you have to assign one skill always on the Warfare to rearmament to switch between weapons, leaving only 3 skills to use between each weapon combined. You also are locked out of any Meister Arts, so those can't be used either. So I just ended up using the Warrior's Lunge Art, a strong uppercut attack, and a Magic Archer skill that shot a giant block of ice. I do wish there was a little bit of change here. I wish you could equip maybe 2 or 3 weapons. They always have rearmament on them, no Meister skill still, but at each time you swap weapons that you got a new set of skills. But that's what New Game Plus and mods are for. Now there's also the pawn system, the pseudo-online multiplayer system. Each player will design their own pawn called their main pawn that will be with them throughout the entire game, and they'll be able to choose between the 4 basic vocations as well as the Warrior and Sorcerer when those are unlocked. The other vocations are player only. Pawns will level up alongside the player in overall level as well as vocation levels with access to the same skills, and the same rules do apply as well. Unlocking augments from each vocation can then be used to mix and match as you see fit on their currently equipped vocation. Then you can recruit 2 additional pawns from Beyond the Rift, a fancy way of saying using other players' pawns. These pawns are set in their ways though. They will not level up, their vocations and skills are set. If you do for some reason feel like being generous and upgrading their gear, they will keep it, and they will return to their owner when dismissed with those items. However, they are great pack mules, and with any items in their inventory when they die or are dismissed, those items will be sent to your storage. Be careful though, if you are keeping your camping gear on them and they're dismissed or die, that goes to your storage, you no longer have it. These pawns can be found anywhere really, wandering the world, from special riftstones or summoned from riftstones themselves, but beware the Dragon's Plague. That will be fun if you summon a pawn with that. With all of this out of the way though, the world, how you interact with it, vocation system, that would all be pointless if the game didn't play well. Thankfully, it plays extremely well. Early encounters with small groups of enemies as your inexperienced adventurer will be grueling and taxing, but will ease up as you level up, as you increase your equipment, as you level up your vocations themselves. It all will get better and easier until it gets more difficult. Close fights where you limp away from a fight with an ogre or a griffin will soon become more of a stroll through the park, as both you and your pawn are more experienced and stronger when tackling these larger foes. While even if your vocation is weaker, your knowledge is not, and your gear probably not as well, and you can put that to good use in tackling these obstacles. You'll soon come to understand what large monsters are weak to and exploit those, and exploit them to those elements or tactics. Be it hacking out their legs and toppling them to get to the weak point, or setting them aflame with magic or your fire-imbued weapons, or plummeting from the sky. Of course, beating them over the head with a large hammer always worked for me in the very end. Your pawns will also learn and grow with you. They earn badges by defeating large enemies a certain amount of times, such as drakes 40 times or a minotaur 30 times, camping in specific country 3 days consecutively while in a party at different locations. This increases their knowledge on how to defeat those large enemies, as well as general knowledge of the land and on where those secrets are. By completing quests with your pawn or other players' pawns, they can then also take that knowledge elsewhere and help out. To speed up this process, you can assign your pawn a pawn quest, requesting that the person who summons them defeat a specific type of enemy, camping somewhere, or acquiring an item for you. and providing a reward for their services of helping you earn that badge. This helps create pawns that are invaluable to be summoned, but alas, this is also how the Dragon's Plague is spread. That's something you should watch out for, but I'll leave that as a surprise. Combat is weighty. It's not like a hack and slash where it feels like your character is just swinging their weapon and enemies are taking damage. Physics play a large role in this game. As a warrior, you pretty much can just baseball home run swing your enemies across the screen. Not only in death, but while they're still alive, you can just launch them. You can also pick them up and use them as projectile weapons, or just throw them into the waterways as a treat for the brine. The brine does love a special goblin treat. Large monsters can be mounted and climbed upon, providing melee characters a chance to attack weak points that otherwise would not be available to them. And when these enemies are stunned or knocked down, well, then it's easy pickings for them. Large monsters can also pick you up and throw you. They can jump on you and crush you. They can in turn charge you or hit you with their weapons and send you flying across the battlefield into a wall and stunning you. Of course, as you get stronger and understand your build and the enemies more, this is less likely to happen, but there's always a chance, and it's always just as entertaining no matter what. Of course, some enemies have strengths against what you might be trying to do, so be prepared to have to switch up your strategy as you go from place to place, location to location. Such as your sword might now bounce off the rocky carapace of armored enemies, and the only recourse is to use blunt weaponry such as hammers or maces, or have magically enhanced weapons. Be prepared to try new tactics and foray back into the field. Retreating to live another day and tackle the challenge isn't cowardly, sometimes it's just smart. Now the world itself is beautiful. At so many points, you are just led to these vast overlooks of the game world, seeing everything laid out before you, and it's just a spectacle to behold. Griffins or drakes flying in the distance, trolls or ogres lumbering on the ground fighting other small mobs. View distance is immaculate and the detail miraculous. But here's where the game probably draws into its technical struggles. On consoles, Capcom is just now implementing a 30 FPS cap mode as an option. Prior, the game was uncapped, and it was ranging from 24 to 48 FPS, the lows being the populated cities and the highs being the wilderness. Of course, there are some optimization issues on the PC version being reported as well. I myself can't replicate these as my footage is showing, but I've also not had these issues. I've had lows of maybe around 112 frames in the cities, and if uncapped, I've gone up to 280 some in the wilderness and fights. However, even on my new ultra-wide monitor, I'm not dipping below that 112 in a 3440 by 1440 resolution, which is a 21 by 9 aspect ratio. This while recording on the same PC. So either people are running older hardware and are lying about what they actually have, they are running dying hardware, they are running hundreds of background processes, or they're running hardware that's not set up correctly. Now these are people also saying they're running RTX 4090s and a 13900K or a 14900K CPUs. Myself having that same RTX 4090 and a 13900K, so I don't know. As with any PC game, your experience may vary, but my experience has been nothing but immaculate on the highest settings available, without any of the DLSS AI upscaling nonsense. And when I do happen to turn it on, I'm sitting at above 250 if it remains uncapped. I'll never dip below what my monitor is capable of displaying, even the ultra-wide and super populated locations. Of course, we also have some microtransaction buffoonery going on. I say buffoonery because people have been flat out lying what is included for purchase or what is available for purchase, such as buying the ability to be able to teleport, that you could purchase extra save slots. No, you can't. If you've played the Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, it's the same sort of microtransactions. These are various time-saving microtransactions that have a limit of one purchase per account. And these provide a sort of skip for people who want it. Be it extra rift crystals to hire a higher level pawn from the rift to help you out, or some glasses for them to wear for their appearance, or a book of metamorphosis which allows you to use a barber to change your pawn's appearance, or a port crystal. There's also the deluxe edition items up for sale as well that you can buy. These items, though, you'd be an idiot to buy. You earn RC when your pawn is used by other players or by discovering rift stones or by killing enemies. The Book of Metamorphosis you buy with RC from the Pawn Guild. Port crystals have a cap of 10 that you can have placed at any one time, and this purchased one doesn't increase that cap to 11. That is using one of your 10 slots. So you will be finding port crystals that you can't use. The Explorer's Camp Pack can be bought later on in the game from merchants. The only item that doesn't have a counterpart is a necklace you can use as a gift to an NPC to raise your relationship with them. But you can also just pick flowers and give them to them. It's completely unnecessary. These microtransactions are highly unnecessary to purchase. This isn't the first time Capcom has done this either. Every single player game that they have released in the last decade has had these sort of time-saving skip purchases. It's also just not Capcom. Sega, Square Enix, any Japanese studio has these with the exception of perhaps From Software. And can you be upset? Absolutely. They're weird microtransactions in a single-player game. The multiplayer component is very limited, if you can even really call it multiplayer. And you're allowed to be upset at this. But is it also being misrepresented and blown way out of proportion? Also, yes, absolutely. Anyways, Dragon's Dogma 2. I absolutely adore this game. I've played the ever-loving hell out of it since launch, and I can't wait to go back and play some more. I'm convinced that there are still locations that I've not fully explored and secrets that I have not discovered. There are quests that I have not completed and quest outcomes I have not seen. Despite my vocations being maxed, my character still has their main level to grow and my pawn badges to collect and grow as well. Capcom has already sent out a survey asking about future DLC, and this gives me hope that we'll get more support than the first title did. Although Dark Arisen was a great DLC and transformed the game quite a bit back in the day, hopefully we get quite a bit more with this game, as there's still large parts of the map that have nothing in them, like entire islands can be added, or new continents, or even new maps, underground areas, overworld areas. There's a ton of stuff that they can do. Dragon's Dogma 2 has apparently already sold 2.5 million copies within its first 2 weeks as well. This has been Capcom's best-selling single-player game on Steam ever, despite the hubbub online about performance and game-breaking single-player microtransactions that break nothing except your intelligence if you buy them. I absolutely love this game. This is my kind of open-world RPG. I'm given a sandbox. I have quests to do and a story to participate in, a world to explore, its secrets to uncover. It's nothing but an absolutely mesmerizing time, and I'm looking forward to the next time I can get the same kind of fix and feeling of wonderment and excitement I had exploring the world of Dragon's Dogma 2, and I can't recommend it enough.